Well, it turns out that this is not a one-off. This is done intentionally, and there is a reason for the neck being made this way on this Epiphone Les Paul. I just think it looks kind of weird. Glenn here, Monster Guitars. How you doing? Part 2. I believe this will be part 2 of removing and replacing the neck on this Epiphone Les Paul that I've got clamped down to the bench here. This is a coffee machine. It's an espresso machine that doesn't work, hence it being sitting around out here in the workshop. And it gave me an idea, because one of the things that you're going to need, or which will certainly make your life easier when you're removing a glued-in neck, is a source of steam and a way of getting steam into that neck joint to soften the glue and pull the neck out. This is a source of steam. The coffee espresso part of this doesn't work so well, which is why I've replaced it with a new coffee machine. But the steam wand works brilliantly. So all I've done is got some automotive hosing, attached that to the steam wand using a hose clamp, and on the end of this is a needle for inflating a ball, and that is going to be my steam injector. In this video you'll see how I do that. So let's give it a go. It's time to attempt to steam this neck off, and I'm having to think about my approach. That extra bit that was sort of rammed in there, I'm thinking was put in there as part of the, it's not really part of the body because it's separated from it, because it's a separate piece of wood, but I'm thinking that was put in there to function as part of the pocket rather than as part of the neck. You have to sort of figure out why these messy things were done. But there is a big gap between those two pieces of wood, and that is where I shall apply some steam. I've never done this before. Obviously there's going to be some mess in there because that's going to get wet, and I won't really be able to try putting anything in there afterwards until it's all dry. But let's see how I get on. I'm wearing a heavy glove because that hose does get very hot. We'll give this a go. I mean, a little bit of water on the surface of the guitar is no problem. It's got a good clear coat on there. I've really not much idea of how long I should expect this to take. I'm not expecting it to, well, I hope it doesn't break while I'm doing this just now. This is just to try to coax a little bit of movement out of this, and I am seeing a tiny amount of movement, but not very much. I guess that's what tiny means. I may actually drill a hole over on this side to get some steam into there as well. I'll use the gap on this one as a depth gauge to see how deep I need to go. Even if I were keeping the neck, that would be a fine thing to do because it's under the fretboard and it's just a small hole. Because I'm not keeping the neck, I'll drill another one. So this may not be the ideal method just because there is so much water getting down there. Just moving the guitar to make it less likely that I will snap the pocket when the neck does come off. Okay. Okay. I think we're making some progress, but it's hard to see how much. I've got the neck cleaved away from the sides of the pocket, I know that. One more won't hurt. Clean. That was a good, clean exit from the pocket. Nice. You'll see that other than, well, there's a bit of finish making the edge look a bit ragged, but other than being wet, I haven't done any damage there. That's great. Very good. Okay, so now I do nothing. I'm just going to let that dry. I'll show you what I've done, but I won't touch it. It's kind of weird. I mean, it's almost like it is a tenon, but off to the side, not the way that a tenon should be. Nice and clean. So I'll just let that dry, and then I will I'll use a chisel or a scraper just to clean up the surfaces a bit, get off some of that remaining glue. Not that there's all that much left. Well, that wasn't too difficult. Good. All right. One truss rod channel is routed. Actually, I will do a little bit more routing and route the access hole there for adjustment. I'm only applying glue to the section that's going to be inside the guitar, because that's the only part that needs to be thicker, and a little bit more, but not much more. Very good. So I've got a little bit more to take off there. I can see I'm just shaping the very end of the neck based on the outline of the fretboard, so that I can then cut that offset tenon once the shape is complete. I'll do that in just a moment. I'm using the tenon off the broken neck as a template to trace the shape onto the new neck for me to cut out. And I want to do it, well, I will attempt to do it so that I cut out a shape that is slightly larger than what I need. Anytime you're chiseling out a channel like this, chisel in from each end so that the two channels meet in the middle. Don't just let the chisel drive all the way through out to the other side, because you could easily tear out a chunk. Because you can't quite see what it looks like as I'm fitting it in, but just come back in a moment when I've got this into a shape that I think is right. So it's a bit tricky, a bit sneaky on my part just to switch to this shot and say, and here it is, because it's pretty well shaped now. But there was actually quite a bit of fiddly work involved in me getting that right, because I don't have whatever sort of jig Epiphone has when they mass produce these, and it was difficult to get that angle just right, and there's been some glue involved and various little bits of filing and close-up attention. But that's basically right, so I'm happy with that. I can refine it a little bit more before I glue it in. I'm going to turn my attention to the headstock now. I'll put some wings on it, and then I will start shaping things more properly. I'm gluing wings made from limu onto the headstock, one at a time. I'm just gluing that one on at the moment. That piece of wood there is just a caul. And then I will glue one onto the other side. I should tidy all this up because I've got other tasks to get on with while those pieces are gluing on. And here's one of them. You'll see that there is some binding missing from the fretboard. I took it off just now. I cut the binding there and stripped it off. And the reason I did that is I could see that on the bottom edge of the binding up there, where the binding had been over the body, I had quite obviously damaged it when getting the fretboard off so badly that it would not have sat nice and flush on the neck or on that part of the body, and of course that's no good. So I'm going to rebind the fretboard, or that part of it anyway. Shouldn't be too difficult. I must clean this up before I carry on. It's driving me crazy.